Hello, good morning, good day, wherever you're coming in from. My name is Lana from Blast Fitness with Lana, and here I am in my super fancy headquarters, which is my office and my daughter's playroom. So I'm going live on Instagram and Facebook right now, which is why you'll see me hopping back and forth from screen to screen. And today we are talking about one of my most favorite topics, which is all about muscle building. So some of my favorite tips to get a little bit more efficient with your workouts, to see some of the results that you are potentially craving, which mostly include muscle definition for many of the women that I train. So what we're going to talk about are 4 critical training tips on your muscle building journey. So 4 of the things that I see most of my clients before they're starting to work with me. These are the common mistakes that they're making. They're feeling frustrated, perhaps not seeing the results that they're looking for, and they feel like they're putting a lot of effort into their training, into their eating strategies, and perhaps not recognizing the physical results that they're looking for. So we're going to jump right in. If you guys have questions, be sure to type them in. If I don't answer them right away, I will be sure to circle back and answer them as we go through this live chat. So the first big mistake and training tip that I like to include because of that mistake when it comes to women looking to build muscle or to see muscle definition is that we're often training too much. And I know this is a huge surprise for most people. They're like, what? But I thought exercise was important. I thought it was the thing that I needed to do to see my muscles. And it is, but it's kind of like the Goldilocks principle, right? We don't want too little, right? Because if we have too little stimulus and too little amount of exercise, we're not going to have that stimulus on our muscles to signal to them to grow and build and get stronger. But at the same time, if we have too much training, if we're training for hours a day, and 6 or 7 days a week, chances are really good that we're not actually giving our muscles enough time to rest and regenerate and recover. So we want that perfect amount of exercise, not too much, not too little. And the question is always, okay, well, how much is that? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on the amount of life stress that you've got going on. It depends on your training history. It depends on if you're dealing with any injuries. It depends on how much time you've got to devote to your training. But for me and the women I work with, it's somewhere between 3 and 5 solid strength training sessions per week. So if you're the type of person, kind of like I was, 5 or 6 years ago, where I was exercising for hours and hours a day, teaching a couple cycling classes, doing a strength training workout, maybe fitting in some sprints, doing a lot of walking, and I was feeling like I was pretty tired most of the time, training quite intensely, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, and not seeing the results that I thought I should be with that level of training. The answer for me was to really scale back the amount of exercise that I was doing and make it more efficient and effective. So focusing a little bit more on intensity, so 20 to 30 minutes of challenging, heavy lifting, total body exercise, mostly strength training based, with some cardio or metabolic intervals, and I'll give you a few examples of that in a second, the just right amount of that type of exercise. And of course it took time. It wasn't like I went from exercising 15 to 20 hours a week all the way down to 4 or 5 hours a week and saw instant results. It probably took 3 to 6 months to see some changes, but the biggest thing that changed for me, which is point number 2, so critical training tip number 2 when you're trying to build muscle, is that we need to recognize that our hunger, so the amount of hunger that we're experiencing physically and emotionally too, is going to increase if we have really, really high duration of exercise. So if we're doing that 15 to 20 hours a week of training, we are more likely to see a lot of hunger cues, a lot of physical hunger cues. So for me, the biggest change that I noticed when I went from a couple hours of exercise per day to 4 to 5 hours of exercise per week, mostly in 30-minute sessions, sometimes lifting up to 45 minutes, or sometimes, going for a bike ride for an hour, that sort of thing, but definitely not every day, was that my hunger cues really balanced out. So I was significantly less hungry. I didn't feel that urge to snack all the time because I wasn't running around and spending hours and hours on my feet, sweating in and out. And I mean, I need you guys to understand that I'm the type of person that really likes exercise. I was in that sort of mode because exercise was my job. I was teaching tons of fitness classes, and I genuinely loved teaching cycling classes. But it's a type of thing that's not very sustainable, right? We can't do that year after year after year and continue to see results and continue to feel like our hormones are balanced and our hunger cues are balanced. And so I was looking for a different way to train so that I could still exercise because I liked it. I could see some more results because I wasn't seeing great results and I was spending a ton of time training. And also so that I would have energy for other things in my life. So I wasn't, spending 15 to 20 hours a week exercising and then feeling zonked when it came to hanging out with my friends and family or doing other things, other projects around the house and stuff like that. So if your goal is to build muscle mass and see muscle definition, then we need to find that sweet spot of the amount of exercise and the type of exercise that we're doing, in the sense that it equals out and balances out our hunger cues. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like for me and for a lot of the women I train. It looks like 3 to 5 short exercise sessions a week, primarily focused on strength training. So usually total body strength training workouts, less than 30 minutes in length. It means that we're doing the big exercises like lunges, squats, step-ups, hip thrusts, hamstring curls, deadlifts, rows, chest presses, overhead presses, planks, side planks, on all those sorts of movements, wood chops, side lunges. We're moving in the forward and back plane, we're moving side to side, and we're moving rotationally. So making sure that we've got that really functional level of movement going on. It also looks like if we're only working out 3 times a week and it's 30 minutes or less, which is absolutely, we can see great results in terms of muscle definition from that. If that's where we're at, then the main goal, the foundation of our exercise training needs to be strength training, especially for women in 30s, 40s, and 50s, because it's one of the most effective ways for us to increase our metabolic rate without drastically increasing our hunger. Okay, so if you're the type of person who loves to run, most of my best friends are runners. They love to run. They're signing up for races all the time, and lots of my clients are as well. There's nothing wrong with that. I want you to keep running. The most important thing with exercise is obviously consistency, and consistency comes from enjoying what you do. But if you're running because you're looking for results and looking to see muscle definition and you're not getting it, could we scale back some of our running, increase some of our strength training? We'll see more results from the muscle building perspective, and we'll also see more results with increasing speed, increasing power, seeing less injury. So I'm not saying don't run or don't cycle or don't do, all of the lovely, healthy, wonderful exercises that you like to do. All I'm saying is if your goal is to see more muscle definition, can we add a little bit more strength training into our routine? And this brings us to critical training tip number 3 for your muscle building journey. So once I get my clients and myself onto this idea of training a little bit less, so 3 to 5 30-minute or less strength training sessions per week, we get into this place where, because our workouts are really short, sometimes we're rushing through the reps, right? We're like getting those 10 bicep curls in, squats and bicep curls or chest presses or whatever they are, and we're not slowing down the movement enough for us to feel the fatigue or to get to muscular fatigue, or we're not lifting heavy enough in order for our muscles to get that stimulus to grow stronger, to lay down more muscle fibers, so more amount of muscle on those muscle fibers so that we can see that muscle growth. So training tip number 3 is to slow down your reps. In the 8-week muscle makeover, which is my brand new home workout training program, we have a blend of 2 different types of workouts. Primarily, we're focusing on strength training workouts, which are those, a little bit slower workouts where we're building muscle, we're taking our muscles to fatigue, we're doing mostly big muscle group exercises like lunges and squats and curls at the same time, that sort of thing. But we've also included some metabolic workouts. This is when you want to add that power, add that intensity, add a little bit more speed, or maybe a little bit more impact to your exercises. But primarily, we want to be focusing on, if you're not seeing the results that you're looking for when it comes to muscle definition, to slowing down the movements just a little bit so that we're using muscle instead of momentum. It doesn't mean that momentum is bad or wrong. There's absolutely a time when we use it. If you're doing any Olympic lifting, if you're training for an event, if you're an athlete and you're trying to get more power, then yes, you definitely need to be using momentum. But if you're like me, you're not training for a specific event, you want to enjoy your workouts and you want to see a little bit more muscle definition, in your strength training workouts, we need to slow down the reps a little bit so that we can actually use muscle instead of always using momentum. Some of our workouts will use a bit more momentum when we're doing squat jumps and speed skaters and jumping up onto the bench and all those sorts of things, but primarily we're focusing on muscle over momentum. So we're going to bring ourselves around to critical training tip number 4, which is your best friend on your muscle building journey is consistency. So the first 6 weeks where you take on a period of regular strength training, so that 3 to 5 times a week, 30 minutes or less, most of the results that you're seeing is actually from the neural adaptation to training. So I'm going to explain that. All it means is that, if you take on a training program and for the first 6 weeks, you're like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit stronger, seeing a little bit of muscle definition, but not a ton. Maybe you haven't been training very regularly. The results that you're seeing initially are from your nerves adapting to the stimulus that you're placing on your body. So I'm doing lots of bicep curls here for my examples because I'm sitting and it's the easiest thing for me to show you. If I'm, adding more muscle building movement into my training program, the first 6 weeks, my nervous system is saying, okay, I got to get my stuff in gear. I got to get my spark plugs going. I got to get everything aligned so that I can adapt to the stimulus. After that first 6 weeks, that's when we start laying down more muscle fibers. Okay, that's when our muscle fibers start growing thicker, so then we can actually see that muscle growth, that muscle definition that we're looking for. So this is why consistency is really important, and this is why people quit, because they're like, I should see tons of results in 30 days. There's 30-day challenges or 10-day challenges or 2-week, crazy muscle building sort of things. And muscle building is not a short-term thing. It takes years, especially if you're a woman, especially if you don't have a significant history of lifting weights. It's going to take a long time for you to see results with muscle building. So the answer is that we have to start somewhere. For me, making this program, the 8-week muscle makeover, which is on sale right now until Friday, June 29th at midnight Mountain Standard Time for $39, was my answer for people to just start. We need to start somewhere. And then once we've gotten into that regular habit of lifting regularly for 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 weeks, we stick with it, those 3 to 5 days a week, 30 minutes or less, total body strength training, going slow enough to make sure that our muscles are getting that stimulus. Once we've got that down, we continue doing that exact path, that exact journey for years. And that is how you're going to see muscle definition. Muscle definition is not something that comes quickly. It's not a quick fix, but in us taking on building muscle, we find a way to exercise that's going to work through menopause. It's going to work through traveling. It's going to work through whether we're exercising at home or we're exercising in a little tiny gym at our work, whether we're exercising in the park with our kids or in a big box gym and we've just got our little corner and we take a few dumbbells and a bench and we get our workouts done there. So what I need you to know is that the only way we can be consistent is if we're able to repeatedly do our workouts over and over, right? So our workouts need to be shorter versus longer because we're more likely to do them when they're 30 minutes or less, right? There's less reasons for us not to get our workouts in when they are shorter. There's less reasons for us not to get our workouts in when they're effective, because if we're spending 20 to 30 minutes and we're feeling sweaty, we're feeling like we got to muscle fatigue, we're feeling like we worked a lot of the biggest muscle groups in our body, we're going to see results faster than if we're spending hours and hours on the treadmill, or if we're targeting really small muscle groups all the time and we're not getting that big muscle building stimulus for our entire body. So I hope this has been really helpful. Our 4 critical training tips for you on your muscle building journey. Number 1 was finding just the right amount of training. So if you're training too little, like less than 3 times per week, or if you're training too much, more than 5 times per week, and you're not seeing results, try to either increase it a little bit or scale it back to that 3 to 5 times per week of 20 to 30 minutes, total body strength training. It's really, really great for that Goldilocks amount, that just right amount of exercise. So we're going to see results, but remember point number 2, we're going to see results, but our hunger isn't going to increase so much so that we feel like we need to be snacking and eating all the time because the level of exercise that we're doing is so high that we need to continually be fueling our body. If you're an athlete, if you are training for a specific event and you have hours and hours of exercise in your program, that is a little bit different than what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about how you can see muscle definition from your training in the most efficient and effective manner. If you're training for a marathon or an adventure race or, a powerlifting competition or any sort of event that requires you to put a certain amount of time in, that is a separate discussion. Okay, so right now we're talking about efficient and effective exercise in order to see muscle definition. And point number 3 was don't rush your reps, right? And remember to use muscle instead of momentum for the majority of the time, making sure that the movements are controlled. You're actually using your muscle to lift the weight, to push that load, because then you're actually going to be able to see that stimulus on your muscle, tell your muscles to lay down more muscle fibers, get bigger, grow more, and then we'll be able to see that muscle mass. And then finally, critical training tip number 4 for your muscle building journey is your best friend on a muscle building journey is consistency. So this isn't the type of thing that we just build beautiful, big, strong muscles in 30 days or even 8 weeks. You have to start somewhere, but this is a process and a practice that we adopt and we fix and we do over time. It's not the type of thing that we can just slap on over 30 days and then see really great results. Okay, thanks so much for joining me, guys. If you do have questions about the 8-week muscle makeover, making you wiggle, just pop me a DM or send me a note on Facebook, whether you're watching on Facebook or Instagram. I'd be happy to chat with you. And you've got another day and a half to join me because the sale ends on Friday, June 29th at midnight. All right, have a great Thursday. Talk to you soon.